A police official says a gunman shot several people dead in Hamburg, Germany.
Authorities say a pregnant woman was among the fatalities. More details on this later in the news. Good evening. I am Ricky Mathay.
And I am Nina Richie Alago Flores. This is Mata ng Agila International. Now for the headlines. Despite a Chinese security vessel's demand to leave, Philippine Coast Guard asserts they are flying within Philippine sea territory. Japan experts will begin oil spill cleanup mission this Saturday. Meralco announces increases in March electric bill. Chinese President Xi Jinping seals unprecedented third term. And former U.S. President Donald Trump set to testify before New York grand jury. The Philippine Coast Guard, or PCG, once again conducted a maritime domain awareness flight with members of the media over the disputed territories of Spratly Islands or West Philippine Sea. But during the flight, a Chinese Coast Guard vessel issued a stern warning for them to leave the area. However, a PCG pilot asserts that they are within Philippine territory. Paulo Ramos for the story.
A Chinese Coast Guard vessel issued a stern order to a Philippine Coast Guard plane conducting a maritime domain awareness flight over the Spratly Islands to leave immediately. The PCG flight was carrying journalists over the highly disputed territories in the West Philippine Sea, particularly in Pag-asa Island, Ayungin Shoal, and Sabina Shoal. The order came from a radio operator on a Chinese Coast Guard vessel 3,500 feet below, one of dozens of ships seen prowling the waters. AFP was among the several media outlets given the rare opportunity on Thursday to fly over some of the dozens of tiny islands and reefs where the Philippines, China, and several other nations have competing claims. The PCG says they received 7 radio challenges from the CCG vessel, 4 in the area of Pag-asa Island and 3 in the vicinity of Ayungin Shoal. The Philippine pilot asserted that they were flying within the country's territory. During the flight, the PCG saw 15 Chinese maritime militia vessels in the vicinity of Pag-asa Island. But the People's Liberation Army, or PLA, Navy's Jiangdao class warship, and the CCG vessel 5203 remain within the 12 nautical mile territorial sea of the island. Over at Ayungin Shoal, the CCG vessel 5304 remains at a distance of 6 nautical miles from the BRP Sierra Madre of the Philippine Navy. There are also 16 Chinese maritime militia vessels sprawling around Sabina Shoal from the previous 26 vessels. The Philippine Coast Guard assures that despite many challenges, they will remain firm in asserting and monitoring the country's territory. Paulo Ramos for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
In Washington, D.C., Ambassador Jose Manuel Romualdez elaborates on what's in store for Philippine-U.S. relations on several fronts. Sarah Nackman has the details.
Philippine Ambassador to the United States, Jose Manuel Romualdez, delivers a lecture here today at the Institute of World Politics. This as the inaugural anniversary of President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr.'s administration nears. The Institute of World Politics hosts a lecture to address the importance of partnership between the two allies.
One of our key initiatives is to expand our network with other scholar practitioners, not only from the U.S. but also from allied countries in the regions of Northeast and Southeast Asia.
Ambassador Romualdez says the Philippines is prioritizing security in the Indo-Pacific as well as strengthening the economy of the Philippines that benefits both nations. He states there is a parallel in both Philippines and U.S. economy and hopes for more trading.
Economic trade between our two countries is something that we've always had for many years. We would like to see more activity between the United States and the Philippines because of our strong connection.
On security, he mentions the Philippines' perspective on global and regional challenges such as territorial maritime dispute with China.
The most pressing security threat to the Philippines is our territorial waters that are slowly being, not only is it the building of these reefs into islands or even military bases, but this is destroying the maritime richness of the area. But more importantly, again, is the territorial integrity of any country is something that is very sacred.
Referring to the Indo-Pacific region, Ambassador Romualdez underscores that in addition to the current military threat, cyber is also one of the Philippines' biggest concern in the country.
Well, cybersecurity is another issue that we should all be watching out for. Obviously, it's a growing concern for many nations, and Philippines is definitely included in that. And we even have, I might say, our fears of the use of the cyber network into to cyber crimes.
Going forward, the Philippine ambassador reiterates the importance of the Enhanced Defense Cooperation Agreement, or EDCA, allowing 4 new locations for U.S. and Philippines interoperability, exercise, and even disaster response when needed.
The additional locations would further boost our collective defense and capabilities, promote interoperability between our forces, and address existing and potential security threats to our nation and people, both traditional and non-traditional.
In Washington, D.C., Sarah Nachman for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Several homes of Negros Oriental Congressman Arnulfo Teves Jr. were raided today by the Philippine National Police, where they confiscated firearms and ammunition. Meanwhile, the armed forces of the Philippines deployed its personnel in Negros Oriental as part of the task force ordered by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. to quash the pattern of impunity hounding the province. Celine Dorado for the story.
Operatives from the Philippine National Police Criminal Investigation and Detection Group, or PNP-CIDG, raided this morning several homes of Congressman Arnulfo Teves Jr. in Negros Oriental. CIDG National Capital Region Chief Police Colonel Hansel Marantan led the operation and said they are targeting to raid 5 residences of lawmakers. The operation was based on the search warrant issued by the court against firearms and properties owned by Congressman Teves. In January, the PNP Firearms and Explosives Office, or FEO, canceled the license to own and possess firearms, or LTOP, of Teves because of the fake documents he submitted. The lawmaker then surrendered his firearms, including 3 long firearms and 9 short firearms. However, the FEO says there are firearms registered with Teves that he has not surrendered. In a video posted by Teves in his social media page, the lawmaker admitted that the firearms he surrendered are only partial, but he will also submit the rest of the firearms when he returns to the country. But police authorities have already filed a search warrant before the court. Initial reports from CIDG says they confiscated 1 hand grenade, a 45 caliber pistol, 2 40 caliber pistols, 1 rifle scope, and ammunition. Police also arrested Jose Guimarangan, who is believed to be the caretaker of the property. Meanwhile, the Department of National Defense and the Armed Forces of the Philippines announced a joint news conference. The deployment of 6 battalions of the Philippine Army and the 50-man highly trained reaction company in Negros Oriental to hunt the rest of the suspects as justice for the deaths of Degamo and 8 others. The troops will be part of the joint task force ordered to suppress criminality and return the peace in the whole province, as directed by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.
If we need to establish checkpoints just to make sure that those perpetrators can get away from their known or their location kung saan man sila ngayon. We will do that. And that's why it's important that there's a task force so that there will be unity of command, unity of efforts also.
We are announcing that for those still fugitives na nakita natin na nahandun pa, na nagtatago, sumuko na kayo dahil kasi sinasabi nga namin na you have nothing to really to hide. You can run, but talagang hahanapin namin kayo.
Both officials clarified that a state of emergency will not be imposed in Negros Oriental, but military checkpoints will be installed. However, this will not limit the mobility of the residents and no curfew will be imposed. Celine Dorado for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The House of Representatives travel authorization for the personal trip of Negros Oriental Congressman Arnulfo Teves to the United States expired yesterday, March 9. In a document released by the Office of the House Secretary General Reginald Velasco, it said that the permission for Teves's personal trip to the U.S. was from February 28 to March 9, 2023. Velasco says there are times that lawmakers may extend their personal trips. However, there was no official communication from Teves for when he is returning to the country. Because of the hybrid session, congressmen can attend the session wherever they are located. Velasco adds that there is no official notice from the Department of Justice or DOJ regarding the charges involving the Negros Solon in the assassination and killing of Negros Oriental Governor Roel Degamo. 4 of the crime's suspects have pointed to Teves as the mastermind behind the killing of Degamo and 8 others.
Still on Teves, the National Bureau of Investigation, or NBI, is now investigating former Congressman Pride Henry Teves over the assassination of Negros Oriental Governor Roel Degamo and 8 others. The former lawmaker, a brother of Congressman Arnulfo Teves Jr., competed with Degamo for the governorship of the province in the last election. Pride Teves previously ruled as governor, but the Supreme Court upheld Degamo's protest and declared him as the victor. Justice Secretary Crispin Remulla reiterated his earlier statement that all possible individuals involved in the crime will be investigated. Remulla also exposed that the former congressman tried to put his own people in NBI Negros.
Siyempre, pag sinabi natin that we will not spare anybody, lahat yan under investigation. We are not exempting anybody from investigation as long as they may have a possible relationship or motive to be a part of the trouble. Nung simula ng aking term, naalala ko meron silang gustong ipakiusap tungkol sa NBI. Pero wala kaming napagkasunduan eh. Kasi nga, nung panahon na yun, bago pa lang tayo.
Aside from providing security, the Department of Health or DOJ's Witness Protection Program, or that's the Department of Justice, or WPP, will help the families of 4 suspected turned witnesses in the Degamo murder case. Justice Secretary Crispin Remulla has directed the WPP to help the families of 4 arrested suspects who turned witnesses in the assassination and killing of Negros Oriental Governor Roel Degamo. However, Remulla clarified that the 4 arrested suspects will not immediately be enrolled under the WPP. He explained that part of the WPP's function is to provide assistance or benefits even to accused individuals, as they will also stand as witnesses in the case. The assistance also aims to encourage those accused to admit to their crimes or disclose any information about the crime.
And hopefully that will soften them up to be able to reveal more facts about the case. Helping people in need is of course, a very Filipino trait. And that's why I started the Witness Protection Program to give maximum effort to helping out even the accused persons, as they will also be witnesses to this case.
The Japan Coast Guard assure they can stop the oil leaking from the sunken MT Princess Empress over the coastal area of Oriental Mindoro. The Japanese team will start their mission on Saturday, March 11. Mayan Corvera reports.
The Japanese experts team, who will help the country cleaning up the oil spill in Oriental Mindoro, have arrived and promised to try to lift up the sunken MT Princess Empress. The team, composed of disaster relief experts from Japan Coast Guard, Japan Embassy, and Japan International Cooperation Agency, will start their mission on Saturday, March 11. The team paid a courtesy call with their counterparts from the Philippine Coast Guard. The experts assured that they have the capability to control the oil slick.
The Japan Coast Guard and the Philippine Coast Guard are the best friends for a long time, and we had training for this area. It means oil spill response for a long time, and Japan Coast Guard and Japan are very honored to cooperate with Philippine Coast Guard and Philippine country. We will do our best we will do our best to manage this significant occasion and for your country and for Japan.
The Japanese officials says they will help the Philippine Coast Guard so the affected residents could go back with their livelihood, especially the fisher folks affected by the oil spill. The group refused to give details of their operations because they would first assess the situations in the area.
We are not envisaging detailed operations at this moment. So what I can say at the moment is that it's the survey, and we are conducting the joint operation with the Philippine Coast Guard to think about the strategy to mitigate the impact of the incident or disaster is the first priority. So the detailed, such as the one you mentioned, is going to be considered.
Based on the assessment made by the Philippine Coast Guard personnel, almost 5 to 6 liters of oil every hour is leaking from the sunken oil tanker. However, the PCG could not confirm if the leakage is from the cargo industrial oil or from the vessel's fuel and whether the oil tank is punctured. The operation needs a remote-operated vehicle which can dive up to 400 meters. As of 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the PCG reported that the oil spill have spread in coastal area of Barangay Kasian in Taytay, Palawan. The area is 150 nautical miles or 295 meters away from Nawan, Oriental Mindoro, where the vessel sank. Over in Oriental Mindoro, PCG says the town of Pola was the hardest hit. All the water in 4 other barangays in Pola had been cleaned already, and there is moderate level of oil spill in barangays Kalima and Misong. Mayan Corvera for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Electricity rates will be higher this March based on the announcement of Manila Electric Company or Meralco. The upward price adjustment of 0.545 centavos per kilowatt hour is due to an increase in the generation charge. Meralco says the adjustment will bring the overall rate for a typical household to 11.4348 pesos per kilowatt hour from the previous 10.8895 pesos per kilowatt hour. For a household that consumes 200 kilowatts per hour, this would mean an additional 109 pesos, while consumers who consume 300 kilowatts per hour will pay an additional 136 pesos and 50 centavos. Meanwhile, households that consume 400 kilowatts per hour will have an adjustment of 218 pesos, and consumers with 500 kilowatts per hour will pay an additional 272 pesos and 50 centavos. In a statement, Meralco says the scheduled maintenance of Malampaya facility last February 4 to the 18th triggered the increase in the generation charge.
The COVID-19 seven-day positivity rate in the National Capital Region increased to 2.1% as of March 8. In a tweet, Octa Research Fellow Dr. Guido David says the number is higher than the 1.8% from March 1. However, the nationwide positivity rate, or the percentage of individuals who have tested positive for the virus, remains low. Data from the Department of Health shows that the country's positivity rate is 2.7%. On Thursday, the DOH reported 184 new cases of COVID-19 with 5 deaths. The country also logged 9,119 active cases with 77 recoveries. Metro Manila has the highest new cases with 47, followed by South Cotabato with 18 new infections. The Health Department is projecting 125 to 175 new cases tomorrow, March 11.
The Department of Agriculture has temporarily banned pork products from Singapore following an outbreak of African swine fever, or ASF. Agriculture Senior Undersecretary Domingo Panganiban issued a memorandum banning the entry to the country of domestic and wild pigs from Singapore, as well as food ingredients of the said products, including pork skin and pork meat. The memorandum also states that although Singapore is accredited to export food and other commodities to the Philippines, the DA has to temporarily ban the entry of the products mentioned. The DA admitted that ASF cases also exist in the country. However, the temporary ban is a measure taken to avoid further spread of the illness among livestock.
The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board, or LTFRB, will review the guidelines for the Public Utility Vehicle, or PUV, modernization program as directed by President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. Madeline Villar-Moratillo has the details.
President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. has strictly instructed the Land Transportation, Franchising and Regulatory Board, or LTFRB, to intensify its consultation and dialogue with transport groups affected by the Public Utility Vehicle, or PUV, modernization program.
Instruction po ng ating Pangulo na paigtingin po o patuloy na paigtingin po yung konsultasyon at dialogue po with the stakeholders at i-review po yung Omnibus Franchising Guidelines.
But LTFRB Technical Division Chief Joel Bolano says that even if a review is underway for the Omnibus Franchising Guidelines, the project will not revert to zero. Bolano says the review will start next month and they hope to finish it before December 30, which is the deadline given to traditional jeepney operators and drivers to consolidate and join a transport cooperative or a corporation. The LTFRB clarified that even a cooperative is not immediately required to acquire a new unit which is compliant with European technology.
Consolidation is the initial. Kung magkaroon na po ng result yung review, pag nag-consolidate na yun po yung fleet modernization na ho natin. But again, hindi ho yun ibig sabihin overnight. Kasi may process ho yun. Remember, may mga process pa tayo for the loan.
Bolano also clarified that the Philippine National Standard requires no brand of unit. However, it should qualify the set of design, size, and engine. And to help jeepney operators, Bolano assured that they are working to increase the government subsidy from the current 160,000 pesos.
Ang target ko sana, kung doon nga sa assumption namin, kung 360, maging 360 sana. Kasi sa private banks, 360 siya kasi mas mataas nga po yung equity. Yun po yung tinitingnan ho ng ating ng department.
Madeline Villar-Moratillo for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
Coming up, North Korea conducts fire attack training. China's Xi Jinping handed third term as president. And Volodymyr Zelensky vows Ukraine will not be in chains after Russian strikes. These stories and more when Mata ng Agila International returns.
doom during an economic downturn as certain business opportunities rise despite challenges. Expanding our source of income remains high, and being invested may just be the key. In this episode, we will explore the possibility of one food brand that has been in the market for 40 years. Franchising opportunities are still open and may fit what you're looking for as a business venture. We speak with Che Carino, franchising manager of Mr. Donut, to know more about franchising the beloved donut brand.
You have to be on your toes with your competitors. It's affiliated with yung uso o yung trend. Medyo kailangan flexible and adaptable yung products mo.
Open for Business with Cesar Vallejos, Sunday, 9 p.m. This portion.
Welcome back to Matanang Agila International. Authorities say a gunman has killed at least 7 people, including an unborn baby, in Hamburg, Germany. Several people were also wounded. Witnesses claim they heard 12 continuous shots. German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has called the incident a brutal act of violence. Local reports say the suspect killed himself after police stormed inside the building. German police are still searching for a possible motive, but they say there was no indication of terrorist background to the attack.
Officials say the death toll from a landslide on a remote Indonesian island has risen to 30. The calamity happened Monday on Serasan Island, located in the country's northwest. A local government spokesman says rescuers found more bodies Thursday. Another 24 people are still missing. Poor weather has been hampering search and rescue efforts, but conditions have improved. Communication lines are being restored. Indonesia is prone to landslides during the rainy season. The situation has been aggravated by deforestation. Experts believe the country's weather-related disasters are likely made worse by climate change.
Seoul's military says Pyongyang conducted fire attack drills on Thursday. This just days before South Korea's joint military exercises with the United States. Pyongyang's local media says Kim Jong and Kim Joo-ae were watching the artillery launch. The country's media also released photos of at least 6 missiles fired at the same time. They add that the missiles volley into the West Sea of Korea. Meanwhile, the South Korean military reports that they detected the launch of one ballistic missile. Seoul says they are trying to track the likelihood that it was launched from the same location.
China's Xi Jinping was handed his 3rd term of presidency today, holding a powerful position in the world's most populous country. Beijing's rubber stamp parliament appointment happened after Xi was given an additional 5 years as the Chinese Communist Party's leader in October. Since then, big protests erupted due to his zero-COVID policy. Meanwhile, those issues were avoided at this week's National People's Congress. Xi's presidential re-election is a remarkable rise for China's longest-serving president. Russian President Putin congratulated Xi's re-election. Putin says he values Xi's contribution to Russo-Chinese cooperation in all different areas.
Britain's King Charles III on Friday awarded his younger brother Edward the title Duke of Edinburgh. Charles conferred the title on Edward, currently known as the Earl of Wessex, on his 59th birthday. Royal sources say the King's Act is in line with the wishes of the late Queen Elizabeth II and her husband, Prince Philip. Philip, who was the last holder of the title, had always wanted it to be inherited by Edward. The title will not, however, be inherited by Edward's teenage son, James. Instead, the 15-year-old monarch will become the new Earl of Wessex.
Former U.S. President Donald Trump has been invited to testify before a New York grand jury. His lawyer says Trump's appearance is in connection with the hush money payments made on his behalf during his 2016 presidential campaign. Sources claim prosecutors are nearing a decision on whether to proceed with what could be the first criminal case ever brought against a former U.S. president. Yet Trump's attorney, Joseph Tacopina, asserts there was no legal basis against his client. Tacopina claims the prosecution is weaponizing the justice system against Trump. Meanwhile, the Office of Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg has declined to comment to any media requests.
U.S. President Joe Biden proposes a record-shattering $6.8 trillion budget for 2024. Speaking at a Philadelphia Union Hall, Biden says his proposed budget targets the rich with stiff new taxes. However, he also vows to assist those who've been basically invisible for a long time, such as small business owners.
My budget also invests in critical issues that matter to families, increasing the supply of affordable housing, lower rental costs, and make it easier to buy a home, all of which will generate economic growth and prosperity.
Biden's national budget consists of $1.7 billion to help Ukraine win the war, $3.4 billion to strengthen global democracy, $3 billion to advance gender equality and equity, and $4.2 billion to fight climate crisis. However, some sources say Biden's national budget would add $1.8 trillion to next year's U.S. deficit.
U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin reiterated President Joe Biden's statement that Iran will not acquire nuclear weapons. Austin said Washington remains deeply concerned by Iran's support for terrorism, nuclear advances, aggression at sea, and cyber threats.
The United States will not allow Iran to acquire a nuclear weapon. Now, Iran's destabilizing actions are not just a threat to Israel. They are a challenge to the region and to the world.
Georgian parliament scraps a bill on foreign agents after 2 nights of violent protests in Tbilisi. Opposition members warn more demonstrations could happen. There are also reports that the United States is behind the Georgian rallies. Our RT correspondent Donald Corter tells us more.
The Georgian parliament caving into the main demands of the main demand of these protesters to draft that bill. The opposition has declared they're going to continue these protests that have seen rioters carrying Ukrainian flags, European Union flags, and even American flags here for 2 nights in a row now. Now, this draft bill in question, of course, would have seen non-governmental organizations in the country that receive over 20% of their funding from foreign sources to register as foreign agencies. You can see there's been a lot of anti-Russian sentiment here, as you can imagine, and the protesters have been calling this a Russian-style law, because there is a law in Russia that is similar. It threatens organizations with fines that fail to register. But it's important to understand that the United States has had a law like this long before Russia had a similar one. Back in 1938, Washington passed a law. And the American version is much stricter. It threatens organizations that fail to register with criminal penalties and jail time for its employees. So it is a bit ironic that it was the United States that actually threatened Georgia with sanctions after the parliament passed this draft law and threatened them with sanctions if they did not repeal that. So I've been here throughout the action, specifically last night, and as I said, you know, the protests have been anything but peaceful. We saw Molotov cocktails and fireworks shot at the police. We've seen barricades being built. We've seen protesters defacing government buildings and businesses. We also saw them try to storm the parliament building. These are events that many have said are reminiscent of the Euromaidan coup d'etat back in Kiev, Ukraine in 2014. So I was on the ground there. I saw it with my own eyes, and I was regularly caught in the crossfire between tear gas deployed by the police and the rocks and fireworks, Molotov cocktails that were thrown by protesters.
President Volodymyr Zelensky vows that no matter how treacherous Russia's actions are, Ukraine and its people will not be in chains.
Ми вже показали, на що здатна Україна, і скільки б Росія не робила підлостей, наша держава і народ все одно не будуть у кайданах. Ані ракети, ані звірства Росії в цьому не допоможуть.
Zelensky's pledge comes after Russia unleashed overnight missile attacks on Kyiv. The barrage triggered a wave of power cuts in Kyiv, Kharkiv, Odessa, and nearby regions. Zelensky says repair crews and power engineers are already working to restore power supply in the cities. 9 people were killed during the Russian strike. Kremlin called the massive retaliation in response to what it called terrorist actions by Kyiv in Russia's western Bryansk province last week. Meanwhile, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said extending the Ukraine deal is becoming complicated. Lavrov claims the agreement was not properly implemented.
Если мы говорим о сделке, то она пакетная. Продлевать можно только то, что уже выполняется. А если пакет выполняется наполовину, то вопросы о продлении приобретают достаточно сложный характер.
A group of Ukrainian saboteurs infiltrated the border of Lyubishane in Bryansk region. Local reports say they introduced themselves as liberators. The group also claimed they will not hurt residents in the Russian village. Yet authorities say the group shot 2 unarmed civilians. One of the men also wounded a 10-year-old schoolboy. Russian officials are still investigating the whereabouts of the group.
Up next, 6 people are dead after a bus collides with a train in Nigeria. Afghanistan Taliban governor is killed in suicide bombing. And Fiji's ex-prime minister charged with abuse of office. Stay tuned. Mata ng Agila International will be back with more global news.
Ng sungit at selan si Chef Alex.
Naglalaro ba tayo dito? Now, go again!
Goodwill Barkada, nasampulan.
Ate Cora, yung lunch ng guest ready na ba?
We're not yet done! Pina-perfect pa nga namin eh!
Pati ang reyna ng kusinang si Cora, napulaan. Affected na ata ang buong barkada. Kay gandarang chef na kontrabida. Lloyd at Sarah, nagkatampuhan pa.
Alam ko, hindi mo ayusin tong trabaho mo, huwag ka na lang tumulong. Kasi masisira pa tong resort na pinaghirapan ni Mama Mars dahil sa'yo.
Mauuwi kaya sa pag-aal sa balutan na? Pero teka, nakaputi ata?
Help!
Lodi Lloyd to the rescue. Kay Chef Alex na tila merong issue. Makakakuha pa kaya ang Goodwill Resort ng good review? Abangan sa next episode this Sunday, 4 p.m. Dito lang sa Net25.
Panalo tayo pag together, walang talo pag together. Let's stand together sa Net25.
Residents of Tumbes, Peru paved their way to pass through flooded streets. It is after rivers overflow from the heavy rains brought by Cyclone Yaku. Civil Defense Region Head Rodriguez has declared a state of emergency due to the river's impending danger. The Peruvian Meteorology and Hydrology Service reports that the Tumbes River reached about 1,000 meters. Authorities say the municipality and the army placed sandbags in houses to prevent water from entering.
Sí, ahorita estamos declarados en estado de emergencia por peligro inminente de ríos, no por impacto. El impacto se va a ir llegando de acuerdo a lo que dice el Sename, que va a llover toda esta semana. Y las oficinas de defensa civil de todos los distritos y provincias están funcionando, entregando la ayuda humanitaria a la población.
2 people are dead and 28 missing after a ferry sank off the coast of the Central African nation of Gabon. The Esther Miracle Ferry had been on an overnight trip with 151 passengers aboard when the tragedy struck. Anxious families waited on shore for word of the fate of their loved ones. Officials say there are 121 survivors so far, but the search continues for another 28 people. An adult and a child died. The vessel began taking on water sometime between 3 and 4 in the morning local time. That led to a loss of control and the ferry sank close to shore. Although the water was shallow, currents were strong. An investigation is underway to determine the cause of the accident.
Six people died after a bus collided with a passenger train Thursday in the Nigerian commercial capital, Lagos. The death toll could go higher. Authorities say some of the 74 people injured are in critical condition. The 6 dead included 4 women and 2 men. According to emergency authorities, the bus driver tried to beat a warning signal before the train slammed into his vehicle. Emergency workers struggled for hours trying to rescue people from the mangled wreckage of the bus. Accidents are common on Nigeria's poorly maintained roads as a result of speeding, reckless driving, and disregarding traffic rules.
Prime Minister of Greece, Kyriakos Mitsotakis, has pledged absolute transparency in the probe into the country's deadliest rail crash. He promises immediate action to improve railway safety systems. His comments come at his first cabinet meeting since the February 28th accident, which killed 57 people. His message was delivered a day after tens of thousands of people protested nationwide. They accused Mitsotakis of trying to shift the blame for the tragedy onto an experienced station master. Critics say mismanagement by the government is the main reason for the accident. The crash happened when a freight train and a passenger train collided head-on after mistakenly being directed onto the same track. Mitsotakis says the government must not hide behind a series of human errors. A station master and 3 other rail officials have been charged in the accident.
The Taliban governor of Afghanistan's Balkh province is dead after a suicide bomber attacked his office on Thursday. 1 other person died and 2 people are being treated for injuries in hospital. Mohammad Dawood Muzammil is one of the highest-ranking figures slain since the Taliban regained power in 2021. The explosion happened moments after Muzammil arrived at his office Thursday morning. Authorities are trying to figure out how the bomber gained access to the office of the governor. According to one witness, one of the injured men lost a hand in the explosion. Violence across Afghanistan dropped dramatically when the Taliban seized control. But the security situation is starting to deteriorate again, with the Islamic State group claiming several deadly attacks.
A tragic mining accident in Spain has left 3 miners dead. The accident happened Thursday at a potash mine north of Barcelona. Authorities say the 3 men were around 30 years of age. They have been working about 900 meters underground when a passage collapsed about 9 in the morning local time. Rescuers struggled unsuccessfully to reach the trapped men. One report says one of the victims were master's students at the Manresa Engineering School. It is not clear what they were doing at the site. Officials say the mine had passed an inspection just 3 weeks ago and no irregularities had been noted.
State prosecutors say Fiji ex-Prime Minister Bainimarama is due to appear in court this Friday. Police say Bainimarama is facing a charge of abuse of office. It is alleged that Bainimarama and a police officer quashed an investigation. Fiji President Katunivere suspended the police in January. Meanwhile, Bainimarama resigned on Wednesday. He calls on President Katunivere to protect the Constitution from the new coalition government.
In the U.S., community-based organizations that provide or coordinate suicide prevention services for veterans and their families will be given $52.5 million in grants. Carlo Valdez tells us more.
The U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, or VA, will be awarding $52.5 million in grants to anti-veteran suicide community-based initiatives across America. These include organizations with veteran mental health screenings, providing case management and peer support services, delivering emergency clinical service, and reaching out to veterans at risk of suicide. Preventing veteran suicide is VA's top clinical priority. In September, VA released the 2022 National Veteran Suicide Prevention Annual Report. The report reveals that veteran suicides decreased in 2020 for the second year in a row. Fewer veterans died by suicide in 2020 than in any year since 2006. The VA says veterans at risk of suicide deserve quick and easy access to mental health screenings, peer support, emergency services, and more, both from VA and community-based organizations. This will be the second round of grants awarded through VA staff Sergeant Parker Gordon Fox Suicide Prevention Grant Program. Parker Gordon Fox was a sniper instructor who died by suicide at the age of 25. In Union, New Jersey, Carlo Valdez for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Federal Bureau of Investigation in the United States signs what it calls the 30 by 30 Pledge. The initiative is designed to help improve the representation and experiences of women in law enforcement in the U.S. Joanne Soriano has the report.
At present, women make up 12% of sworn officers and 3% of police leaders in the United States. The goal of the 30 by 30 initiative is to engage 30% of women in police recruit classes by 2030. The FBI says its goal is to also ensure policing agencies are genuinely representative of the jurisdictions they serve. While 30 by 30 focuses on advancing women in policing, these principles are applicable to all demographic diversity. As part of the FBI's 30 by 30 pledge, the agency will review recruitment, hiring, retention, and promotion policies and procedures to advance its diversity developments. The 30 by 30 initiative is affiliated with the Policing Project at NYU School of Law and the National Association of Women Law Enforcement Executives. In New York, Joanne Soriano for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
The Quezon City Memorial Circle will host the country's participation in the world's biggest Earth Hour event to be held on March 25. Let's hear more from Vin Pascua.
As the country's premier city championing climate action, the Quezon City government will host this year's biggest Earth Hour event. On March 25th, the 2023 Earth Hour will be participated by 7,000 cities from 193 countries around the world. Quezon City Mayor Joy Belmonte says the city government's participation in Earth Hour is its way of showing full support against climate change to keep a clean environment. Belmonte adds that the Quezon City government is in partnership with the Worldwide Fund, or WWF, for Nature, and the Earth Hour will promote awareness on environmental preservation.
With all these efforts to create policies, implement programs, and invest in infrastructure to reduce emissions and increase resilience, Quezon City also recognizes that individual actions are vital to achieving the city's climate goals. Thus, we are honored to host this year's Earth Hour celebration at the Quezon Memorial Circle as we join the global community in expressing our strong commitment to protecting our people and our planet.
Earth Hour Ambassador Mikey Kowanko-Jaworski notes the importance of a unified effort to fight climate change because of the damage it has brought to nature and the environment. She adds that the unsustainable carbon emission from developed countries is seriously harming the world.
There's no time to wait in acting on climate change and the environmental destruction. We have already done the damage. We are feeling the effects of what we've done, and we have to act today.
The world. Climate Change Commission Representative Ludwig Federigan agrees that awareness is important to understand the situation of the world due to the bad effects of climate change. Federigan says one of the serious effects of climate change is the destruction of biodiversity, which threatens food and water supply in many parts of the world.
As our natural resources are affected, our production and consumption patterns are altered and the pressure on our well-being is felt more distinctly. It hampers our progress against poverty and sustainable economic growth, and even though we are all affected by climate impacts, it is the most vulnerable who suffer the most. These cross-cutting issue demands a multi-dimensional response crafted through a whole of society and whole of government approach.
Earth Hour organizers also appealed to the public to participate in the activity on March 25, 2023 at 8:30 in the evening, where participants will simultaneously switch off their electric lights for 1 hour as a unified message to save the environment and the world. I am Vin Pascua reporting for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
In the U.S., the Agriculture Department kicks off the very first National Bio-Based Products Day. In celebration, the USDA highlights the accomplishments of people and organizations working to improve sustainability within the federal government. Bernadette Raguini tells us more.
The U.S. Department of Agriculture designates March 8 as National Bio-Based Products Day. The agency honors 2 decades of progress the BioPreferred program has accomplished. The BioPreferred program has been created by the U.S. Congress under the 2002 Farm Bill. The program is the federal government's official advocate and market accelerator for bio-based products. National Bio-Based Products Day is an annual celebration on March 8 to raise awareness of the benefits of bio-based products. The day recognizes the U.S. government's commitment to use federal resources in combating climate change and help rural communities address its impacts. In Virginia, Bernadette Regini from Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Coming right up, World Police Summit showcases innovation fighting against crime. Surfing Association pushes to eliminate gender-based violence through sports. And Alchemy of Souls actor Lee Jae-wook visits the Philippines. Catch more news when Mata ng Agila International returns.
Dito, ang inyong sumbong siguradong may responding katapat. Hindi nagdadalawang isip na tumulong sino man ang nangangailangan. Exclusive! Isang ina na humihiling na marespondehan ang kanyang kambal na anak ating inaksyonan. Grupo ng mga kababaihan na nagsasagawa ng iba't ibang programa para sa kanilang kapwa-babae ating kilalanin. Expose, mga gwardya na hindi sinesweldohan ng agency na kanilang pinapasukan, nagparesponde.
So bro, kumusta naman yung sweldo namin kung may masaan pa ba ako? Walang reply.
Hindi man lang siya mag-text sa amin din yung OYC kung ano yung dapat namin gawin o wala na, hindi na namin na nakakausap. Ang gusto lang po namin na makatulong po sana sila, kaso lang hindi sila nakakatulong, nakakabala pa po.
Mapapanood nyo kami sa mga sumusunod na mga channels. Sabado, alas 6 hanggang alas 7 ng gabi. Ito ang Responde, Mata ng Mamamayan.
The World Police Summit in Dubai highlights the latest breakthroughs in policing, security, and public safety. The summit features a gathering of the world's most influential law enforcement officials, security experts, and decision makers. This year's convergence explores actionable strategies to ensure a safer future. Interpol's Secretary General Jürgen Stock says innovation is important to combat crimes and mafia networks.
In Papua New Guinea, a serving association and its partners push to combat gender-based violence, educate the youth, and reform the older generation through sports. In Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea, Eco Hortaleza Quinola reports.
In the pursuit of addressing the issue of gender inequality in surfing communities around Papua New Guinea and Bougainville, a strategy was created by surfer Andrew Abel. Abel calls it the Pink Nose Revolution. He strongly believes that sports can be a great agent for change.
Happy to see the growing number of national sporting federations joining the Sports Revolution PNG as a homegrown organic body that's its primary focus is to educate the young and reform the old with a view of combating gender-based violence through sports.
The idea is if we can change mindsets through one sport with these simple policies, that we could implement that with all the sporting codes and create real change. The only way we're going to do that is through changing the mindset of people. So we're going to go through the biggest people organizations, which is sports.
Under the concept, ABLE launches Sports Revolution PNG in cooperation with the U.S. Embassy, who is also into the Sports Envoy program. Both aim to combat gender-based violence, educate the youth, and reform the older generation through sports. The U.S. Sports Envoy program is designed to reach underserved communities. It is to inspire the youth by upskill surfing tips and techniques.
The U.S. Embassy is promoting women's empowerment and women's rights through all of our programs, and my office is also supporting other nonprofits that promote gender equality, and we will continue to do this. So it's an ongoing issue, but I'm thrilled that Papua New Guineans have created their own solution to a global problem. The future of PNG is in the hands of Papua New Guineans, and so we are proud that you have created this solution so that you can fulfill your own national destiny.
U.S. Public Diplomacy Officer Damian Wampler presents 3 professional surfers from the United States. The surfers visited Vanimo and conducted sports clinics. They push to eliminate gender-based violence in Papua New Guinea. Eco Hortaleza Quinola, Port Moresby, Papua New Guinea. Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
Fans of the Netflix series Alchemy of Souls are excited to see Korean actor Lee Jae-wook here in the Philippines. Mia Villa tells us more.
Korean actor and leading man of the Korean Netflix series Alchemy of Souls, Lee Jae-wook, is in the Philippines. In a press conference, the Korean actor shared his gratitude to see his Filipino fans. He says Filipino fans are passionate and well-mannered. Jae-wook is looking forward to meeting his fans and their warm welcome. He adds that he wants to visit Boracay. In a local press media interview, he says his role in Alchemy of Souls as Jang-wook is the reason why he was able to conduct a tour in the Philippines. The actor offers his thanks for the great result of his famous Netflix drama. Lee Jae-wook is in the country for his fan meet tomorrow with his Filipino followers. Mia Villa for Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.
It is Friday, and it is time to unwind for the weekend and relax with a TV show. Stephanie Mayo has some recommendations. Take a look.
Why not dive into a couple of limited series this weekend? MH370, The Plane That Disappeared, now streaming on Netflix, is a docu-series that dives into one of the strangest true-to-life tragedies in recent history. Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 vanished from radar 9 years ago on March 8, 2014, over the South China Sea. It delves into the many theories surrounding the plane's mysterious disappearance, along with the over 200 passengers and crew. No, you're not going to get answers, but only fascinating theories and the mental and emotional state of the families of the disappeared passengers.
Theories about the missing plane are going viral. It's possible it was hijacked. We don't know.
Daisy Jones and the Six. Streaming on Amazon Prime Video is a new mini-series called Daisy Jones and the Six, which follows a fictional rock band in 1970s Los Angeles. The 10-episode series, released every Friday, is based on the 2019 novel of the same name by Taylor Jenkins Reid, partly inspired by the author growing up and watching Fleetwood Mac. Music and rock lovers will no doubt enjoy the original songs in the series and its magic hour look. Stephanie Mayo for Mata ng Agila International. Trusted, connected, on point.
And to help you start the weekend, here's a quote from American author and cartoonist Theodore Seuss Geisel. You have brains in your head, you have feet in your shoes. You can steer yourself any direction you choose.
Don't just agree with that. We're just so happy right now.
Yeah.
Of course, colors also make us happy. So a happy weekend, everybody. And that's a wrap for tonight's news. Catch the latest updates on our social media channels. I am Ricky Matay.
And I am Nina Richielago Flores, wishing everyone a great weekend. This is Mata ng Agila International, trusted, connected, on point.